Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. We've got a lot to get through today, some business, some humor, and some basic income. It's gonna be a good time. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park, Shay Meehan, and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/yangdaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. House Democrats have released the verbiage for the stimulus checks in the relief bill, and it is indeed a relief. The amount remains a further $1,400 per person, including child and adult dependents, and the means testing threshold remains at $75,000. Not the monthly checks that any competent government would issue, not even a single $2,000 check like any competent party would issue to deliver on the promise that many voters heard, but better than we feared. That's not to say it's over just yet. It's still possible that an amendment could be accepted to reduce eligibility, so we need to make sure that does not happen. But I think it's likely that this is what will be voted on. We'll take it and get to work lobbying for monthly checks. U.S. House Representative Ron Wright has died after contracting COVID. Wright is at least the 8th U.S. legislator to die of it. All confirmed have been Republicans. Wright was among those fighting COVID mitigation measures and refusing to wear a mask. I feel the need to restate, being asked to wear a mask is not an infringement on people's rights. America's Constitution has always prized individual liberty, and the right to life has always been the highest priority among those, for obvious reasons. This is why it's illegal to murder people. This is why it's illegal to take reckless actions that endanger lives, like drunken driving. This is why everyone should be wearing a mask in public during a deadly pandemic, because not doing so endangers lives. This is obvious. This is simple. There is no good reason to fight against it. 3,000 people are dying every day. When will this madness end? The AARP put out an article discussing the growing need for care work. In it, they note that the vast majority of elderly prefer to be cared for in their own home and by family. Not surprising. But they also note that in-home self-directed care is about 3.5 times cheaper than a nursing home, when each are funded by Medicaid. As UBI would enable far more people to afford to care for themselves and for loved ones, this means that care work is another area where transitioning to unconditional cash aid would save a lot of money, similar to how giving cash to the homeless is shown to reduce overall cost. Everywhere you look, UBI is just a more efficient and humane way to run society. Macroeconomist Josh Bivens, director of research at the Economic Policy Institute and leading policy analyst for U.S. Congress and the UN, floated a brief article today debunking arguments that the relief plan could cause the economy to overheat or could squander political capital. As Bivens says, there is extremely little risk to overdoing relief measures, as the Fed has plenty of options for combating inflation should it arise. Recent history tells us that deflation is more of a risk than inflation, and that the economy has been underperforming for quite some time due to suppressed wages and consumer spending power. Finally, he reiterates a point that we've driven home before, that the American people need to see government getting something done to improve their lives. Failing to deliver on relief would be the way to squander political capital. Delivering on the promise will create more capital that can be used to keep the ball rolling on solving further issues. Next up, here's a sentence that I never expected to utter. Gun control activist David Hogue has announced that he will start a competing business to take down MyPillow, whose CEO has been rabidly spreading voter fraud conspiracies. That's right, it's a pillow fight. When even pillows become partisan, you know something's gone terribly wrong in politics. As for the MyPillow guy, he's become too crazy even for NewsMax, which shovels right-wing propaganda like it's their job. Because apparently it is. Welcome to modern news, air quotes. When NewsMax had Mike Lindell on for an interview, they kept asking him about social media censorship, but he would not stop ranting about voter fraud and how he has all the evidence that he's going to release any day now. The hosts failed to get him on topic and eventually had to lower his volume and speak over him to say that they did not support any of his voter fraud conspiracies and they had found no evidence to back up the claims. Mike was ranting the entire time in the background. It's truly deranged stuff, made all the more hilarious by the fact that they ended up canceling him on air after inviting him on to complain about being canceled on Twitter. Oh, the irony. At that point, they were like, oh, now we get it. You can check out the video below. Why was NewsMax, who previously was sympathetic to such talk, shutting it down? Because they didn't want to get sued for libel. Following Dominion's lawsuits, voting tech company Smartmatic has launched suits against Fox News, 3 of their top hosts, Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell, for $2.7 billion for spreading false claims that the company helped steal an election. Remember how Trump's lawyers go on about voter fraud lies in the public, and then they never make any such claims in court? It's amazing how quickly people find respect for the truth when they are held to legal standards with legal repercussions, isn't it? Sure would be nice if we could have that in the media all the time. It also appears that OAN, Trump's personal hype network, is feeling left out and wants to be in the lawsuit clubhouse as they ran a 3-hour documentary, air quotes, created by Lindell covering his voter fraud claims. They ran it for 12 consecutive hours during prime time on a weekday. That's just good old-fashioned news, folks. I'm sure they'll get their wish soon. Bit late on this next one, but Amy Schumer has endorsed Yang and hosted a fundraiser for him today. Judging by the comments section, a lot of people have very strong negative feelings about Amy. I kinda get it, I'm not a fan, but that's okay. I'm not a fan of lots of entertainers. Different strokes. It really seems like there's a lot more negativity from people in the mayoral race than there was in the presidential. I guess that's because Yang's the frontrunner now. It's not going to work out for them in a ranked choice election, though. London Futurists will be hosting a discussion with author Jeff Crocker in a free webinar this Saturday on the possibility of a UBI funded by Sovereign Wealth, link below. A new basic income pilot program is going to be under consideration in Yolo County, California, that could bring families with young children out of deep poverty. 31 families in CalWorks housing with children under age 2 would receive monthly payments for a year to a max of $12,000 annually per family. It would be funded through cannabis tax revenue, a YOLO program dedicated to children's health, the state's Office of Child Abuse Prevention, and private fundraising. Along with other assistance, the program would bring the families up to the poverty line. If you live in Yolo County, let your local reps know your opinion and how it will affect your vote next election. I say go for it. You only live once. And finally, the movement behind the Oregon People's Rebate that we've talked about before, which would be a tax-funded UBI to be voted on in 2022, are looking to raise funds for signature sheets. They'll need to gather signatures to get the rebate on the ballot and are looking for small donations to help. If you can donate, it seems like a good cause. Either way, share the post and give them a follow on social media to help them reach more people and grow the movement. A win for UBI anywhere is a win for UBI everywhere. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the Care Work and Yolo Basic Income articles. Spread the word on the Oregon rebate fundraising. Contact your reps if you live in Yolo. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the Resist bot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.